Weird. What's it doing?
What do you mean?
Oh, there we go. It was all frozen. You were making a
Yeah,
weird
because
face.
I was loading
Oh.
on the video. I wasn't making a weird face. I was blinking.
Well, it looked like you were making a weird face. It was kind
I'm
of
always
creepy.
making a weird face. I'm me. Anyways, what do I want to talk about today? Well, first off, I'm downstairs, as one can see, and the lighting is a little different. And
Why don't we turn the light on then?
because I don't think that'll really make a difference.
Yes, it will.
What? Of course, I'm a boy. That's kind of the point, isn't it?
The point of what?
Our relationship.
Well, that,
I don't. I
did
don't
that
know.
do
It's
anything?
still well, kind of. It's just this orange keeps turning red,
I think that helped.
and then it goes orange.
Because it
See,
does, it can't.
the flying V breaks cameras.
I was just saying, it's having difficulty. There's too much
Yeah,
ugliness. It
and
just can't.
sadly, I don't think ugliness. It's wonderful.
Okay.
Sadly, this is a video where I want to discuss something that's a topic of conversation right now, and has been a topic on my channel with a video that's really blown up to 14,000 views. Thank you very much. Um, and that's Sidney Crosby. Is he a dirty player? And it's a topic that goes back to my Stanley Cup videos from last year. So if you go back to videos from May of last year when the channel was starting to pick up, um, I talked a lot about that. I talked a lot about the fact that Sidney Crosby takes a lot of abuse in game from players. Basically all players. And as much as people complain that Crosby gets away with crap that he doesn't get called for instance, spearing O'Reilly in the nuts, or the hack on Mathot, he takes a lot too. So that's the trick. I've always stated that of the leagues that are considered to be the major leagues of North America, and that would be the NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, and the NHL. And I'm not excluding Major League Soccer because I don't consider it to be a sport or whatever. I'm just saying for the professional leagues, it's considered to be four big ones, and the NHL is one of them. The NHL is the poorest at protecting its stars, and it seems to be the poorest at having rules that benefit the skill level of their players. Baseball has no problem changing the height of the mound. Baseball has no problem making changes to the game to increase players' ability to score. I would argue that for its detriment, baseball argued the steroids abuse because they knew that more home runs equaled higher ratings, equaled more money, and the players took the steroids knowing that more home runs equals more money. So that's too far to the other side. The NFL protects its quarterbacks. The NBA is infamous for protecting its star players. The NHL doesn't. And I always hear, well, it's Sid the Kid, so nothing's going to happen to him. I can't think of a lot of incidents with Sid the Kid where I've said, wow, he should be suspended. And I made the comment in my last video about Sid the Kid where I said I can't remember a lot of instances with Gretzky and Lemieux. Gretzky and Lemieux would get mad over certain abuse issues too, but, you know, and Lemieux was more of a prick about it than Gretzky openly, but from what I've heard from people over the years, Gretzky behind the scenes wasn't exactly a wonderful guy to be around either, and he was in his mid-20s and he'd broken all the scoring records in the NHL, so I'm sure an ego was an issue with him, as it would be with pretty much anybody in that situation. For me, the NHL has done a lousy job protecting Crosby, as evidenced by the fact that he's been injured as many times as he has, the massive concussions he's had. Now you look at an incident like the Mathot incident, and I said, to me it looked like Crosby was pissy about something else that had happened in the game, and he took it out on Mathot. Much like O'Reilly got speared in the nuts because Crosby was pissed off. Crosby, and I remember when I was a teenager, and I got picked on a lot in high school. And when it would come out, when I would finally break, the person who I would end up hitting, or kicking, or punching, whatever I'd end up doing, was never the one that had caused me to get angry. And when I look at these plays Crosby is guilty of, it looks the same. It looks like it's building, and then he snaps. And it's something innocuous that causes that snap. And when he snaps, he really snaps. But he does it in a way that he's not going to get suspended. I never said he was going to get suspended for what happened to Mathat's finger. I just said, based on the optics, he could. And then everybody's like, oh, he's talking about suspending Crosby. No. Optics are important to the NHL. That's been shown over the years. Whether or not a player gets injured, that's been shown to be important over the years. And it's an interesting league that they have right now because they have star players who take a lot of abuse. And I say that as a Canucks fan. The abuse that a team that wears this jersey suffers is verbal and physical. And I think there's a lot of disastrous results that can be had from wearing these jerseys. But all jokes aside, I've watched the Sidney for the last 15 years, and I can tell you star players take a lot of abuse. And all of the things being said about Crosby are all of the same things that get said about the Sedins. I watched Henrik in recent games. Henrik has been taking penalties he wouldn't have taken 3 or 4 years ago. He's getting frustrated. And their slashes, their hooks, their little things. They're getting into his game. I mean, Henrik has been a Lady Byng contender for the last 15 years of his career. The Sedins are clean players. But every player has a breaking point. And for Crosby, being as out there as he is, everybody knows who Sid the Kid is, he takes a lot of it. He probably takes more than Malkin because Malkin's a much bigger guy. You take on Malkin, you're probably going to get a stick in the face yourself. And Malkin has certainly been guilty of incidents over the last couple of months here. We all remember the Winnipeg-Pittsburgh feud. He's been guilty of stuff himself that was suspension worthy. But Malkin's a big kid. Crosby is not as big as Malkin. Crosby has an injury history that's similar to Malkin's, but more head-oriented than Malkin's for the most part. Crosby knows. He knows he's one hit away from potentially being done with his career due to the headshots he's taken. He's going to be a little bit snippy. And that competitiveness, that almost dirty play, that cranking it up to dirty, and he's crossed the line twice in the last week. I agree. But it's part of what makes him Sidney Crosby. It's part of what makes him the best player in the NHL. It is part of the reason that Crosby's the best player of his generation. And I consider a generation to be that 10-year period, that 10-year window. 5 years before he was drafted, 5 years after. In that window, he is the best of the bunch. And I know for fans in Washington say, what about Ovechkin? Best goal scorer? Sure. Best all-around player? No. That's Crosby. Crosby's won Stanley Cups. Crosby's shown for ages now that he is, in big games, he's the guy you want. So when you get that guy, part of what you're getting is that play. That determined play that's right on that edge. And he aggravates fans of opposing teams. I'm not defending that. I'm not getting into anybody who calls him Cindy Crosby or any of that crap, because I've never called him that, because I've always had a great amount of respect for what he goes through. So there was a lot of comments on that video about, well, have you seen the abuse Crosby takes? Absolutely. I watched the playoffs last year. I watched every game for Pittsburgh. I'm amazed at how much abuse he takes. So when people say, oh, it's the NHL, playing favorites. No, it goes back to my other statement. Call the rulebook. The NHL needs to call the rulebook for the Stars and against the Stars. It needs to call it across the board. It needs to clamp down, and if it's against the rules, you call it as a penalty. They need to sit down this summer, have a committee of players, owners, GMs, whoever they need to, and iron all this crap out. This is a penalty, this is not, this is suspendable, this is not. And go based off of incidents over the last few years in the NHL. And say this incident wasn't suspendable, it should be. This incident was suspendable and probably shouldn't be. They need to figure all of this out. Because it's important to protect your star players. Whether you agree with it or not, if you're a Jets fan, you want to see Laine protected. If you're a Leafs fan, you want to see Matthews protected. If you're a Sabres fan, you want to see Eichel protected. You want to see that happen. It starts with Sidney Crosby. My argument is, I don't think he gets protected as much as other people seem to think he does, because he takes a lot of crap in game. Hacks, slashes, hooks, trips, punches, you name it. If I had a dime for every time I've seen a scrum in a corner and watched one guy punch another guy in the face, and then nothing gets called, and it's like, okay. So it's like, just because we're in a scrum, all 10 guys on the ice are in this scrum, I'm going to punch that guy in the head, it's fine. No, that's against the rules, that's roughing, call it. It's not a matter of taking hitting and fighting out of the game either. It's a matter of respecting the skill in the game and taking the dirty play out. That's why they called all the hooking and holding coming out of that first lockout, and it worked. Now they need to put their foot down again. So this is the thing. For you that hate Crosby and for you that love Crosby, you're on the same side. You have the same dog in this fight. Call the rulebook. Crosby will take a lot less abuse. When he gets abuse, penalties get called, and then he, as a result, doesn't get so frustrated. He hacks and slashes and low bridges a guy or nails him in the nuts because he's sick and tired of whatever. And what gets downplayed too is he was asked about Eugene Melnyk and his comments today, and his answer was, I'm not talking about it. I'm leaving it. I'm done. I agree with him. Ryan O'Reilly came out and said he'd apologized for the nut shot he gave him in that game. So there is honor in Crosby's game. I would not be surprised if he had apologized to Mathot. And I don't blame him for not listening to Eugene Melnyk. Eugene Melnyk's just gonna go off. I've discussed Melnyk on this channel before. So anybody who thinks, oh, what does he have to say about Melnyk? Just look up any video where I talk about the Ottawa Senators. And, you know, my opinion of Melnyk and how he influences his team is there. Let me just say it's a miracle the Ottawa Senators are where they are, considering the way that Melnyk manages the team as an owner. I do not envy the job of Pierre Dorion. I do not envy the job of Guy Boucher. But they've both done a very good job with what they've been given. And the whole Crosby incident, whether it's dirty or it's not, and it was, and if it happens a million times in a game, you call it. In order to penalize Crosby, you also have to penalize those that are attacking Crosby. And that doesn't get called as often as people think it does. I also was going to go through a game last night and count how many slashes take place during a game where I see a guy get slashed on the hands. And I don't know. It happens so fast. It is such a fast motion. It's impossible to tell. And I'm not pausing a game every 5 seconds looking for slashes. It is an epidemic. It is there. And it is causing the flow of the game to be interrupted. And hopefully, coming out of the Crosby incident, something changes. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you're thinking about liking and subscribing, going, but why is he wearing Canucks? Well, the Canucks are playing. And if you're going to win, win ugly. If you're going to lose, lose ugly. So that's why I'm wearing the Flying V. Because it's all about ugly this year for the Canucks. And I just figured before getting into this game, which is now started, I would discuss the Crosby incident because I felt like I needed to do a postscript for that. Because I don't want people to think, oh, he's just anti-Crosby, or I'm necessarily pro-Crosby. I'm just pro calling the game as it should be called. So that star players don't get frustrated, and then lose it. And I see that a lot. So thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe. I know you want to. And I'll talk to you all again soon.